she's like, did you know you can grow tomatoes from a slice of tomato? So I was like, yeah, right. So I took a tomato that was like wrinkly, and I took a couple slices and I put them just under a small layer of soil. And then sure enough, it probably took about 3 weeks. You start seeing these little shoots come up from the seeds. And from those shoots, I got like, I was even giving the plants away. I must have got over 20 plants. It needs to be warm, like warm and light. So I just like on my windowsill in the kitchen, and, just keep it moist and be diligent. And eventually you'll get some little tomato plants.
Christine Tizzard is the author of an upcoming, yet-to-be-named cookbook on reducing food waste, planned to launch in fall 2021. But you might recognize her from some of her other work. She has more than 20 years of experience as a freelance food stylist, recipe developer, cookbook author, and TV contributor. She's been a recurring guest chef on Cityline, The Marilyn Dennis Show, and The Social in Toronto, and she hosted 2 seasons of Best Recipes Ever on the CBC. She's also worked with MasterChef Canada and W Network's Pressure Cooker, and has been a spokesperson and brand ambassador, including for Love Food, Hate Waste, a nonprofit organization in Canada that's trying to draw attention to the exorbitant amount of food waste in this country. So, as an interviewer and occasional TV contributor myself, I'm dying to know what all those TV shows do with the food that ends up on set. For most of my segments, it's eaten or it goes home with the crew, but you have shows like MasterChef and there's just constantly food around, so what do they do? I'm also curious about what Christine thinks it'll take to actually make people eat their leftovers. And we'll play a little refrigerator game of what do you make with these weird ingredients rotting at the back of my fridge. Here's Christine. Hi, Christine. Welcome to the Cinq à Sept podcast.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here.
What are you drinking today?
So at first I was going to do something with leftover jam. And then I ran out of my jam, and then I changed it to, because I was on my last jar of, I was on my last jar of pickles, homemade pickles. So I was like, I'm going to do a classic martini, but with pickle juice, because I love like the classic martini with the olive and just, it's very, very simple with that little briny thing. And then I finished that off. And so over the weekend, I was cleaning out my freezer. This is a really long answer to your question.
I love this answer.
Over the weekend, I was cleaning out my freezer, and I came across a bag of frozen elderberries that I picked from my tree from last year, like hidden like way, way back. So I decided to just make an elderberry cordial. So today I'm drinking some of my elderberry cordial, mixed in with this gin that I love called Empress, and it has this beautiful lavender color. So I paired that with it because the elderberries I boiled down with ginger and lemon and a couple of other spices that I had hanging around. And then I just topped it up with a little bit of ginger ale.
Wow.
So I haven't really tasted it yet. So I'll give it a go.
Okay, great.
And then I was like, garnish. And I had 1 lemon left that I zested. And then I had one sprig of lavender left, and a couple little chamomile flowers left in the garden. Is the last flowers left in my garden.
Well, so let's cheers, and then I'll respond to that. Something.
Cheers.
So I was gonna say, yeah, you like it? You get your
like
thumbs
it.
up?
Have you ever had elderberries before?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, they have a very distinct, like the sour bitter, along with like this weird earthiness to them that is quite interesting, but also a little bit potent.
Well, I'll say first, for anybody who didn't know why you said excuse me in the middle of your explanation, because some people listen to this and don't see it, Christine's dog Ruby is on screen. So I highly recommend people check this out on iTunes or on YouTube so that you can see how adorable Ruby the dog is.
Yeah, so she tends to sometimes just sit and stare at me, and now she's gone to lie down. So
and second, I was going to say, oh, you ran out of your jam. You don't want to go to the laborious process of making more jam. And you make an elderberry cordial, which just seems ridiculous. Oh, I'll just put a little ginger in it. I'll just put a little of this. Really easy. Oh my gosh. Like people listen to that and they're like, that sounds like a ton of work.
Oh, it's so not though.
No?
It's really, really not. Honestly, I love having frozen, any type of frozen berries in the fridge because you literally can just boil them down in a little bit of water or just some juice and whatever things you have on hand. Just throw it on the stovetop for like 5 to 10 minutes and either you have a compote or you have something that you can like strain and you have like this syrupy juice if you want to reduce it more. It's literally throw it in a saucepan and kind of let it go and set a timer. So it's really not.
Okay, zero waste tip number 1.
Sounds really complicated, but it's not hard.
I like that we start the show and you chose a drink that really reduces your potential food waste that way.
Yes.
I kind of took the same inspiration for my drink after you mentioned that you were going to use jam. I was like, oh, that's a really good idea. Except instead of chucking all of my berries in the freezer, which I do as well, the other thing I like to do with berries from my garden is chuck them in booze. So I put raspberries in vodka.
Nice.
And I let it sit since I think they were blooming in June approximately. June, July, maybe early July. And so it gets this nice red color. And then I just added, I did kind of like a caipirinha. So I added like a simple syrup,
nice,
just a little bit of sweetness to it. And then a bunch of lime.
Wow.
Instead of the sugar. Because I didn't mash it because it doesn't have the same like bitterness from using actual lime. So with the raspberries, I just was more gentle with it.
So you've been letting that like steep
age,
kind of
in the fridge.
For like 3 months. No, more than that now. It's how many months is that? August. Oh my God, listen to us.
October, beginning of November. Yeah, so about almost 5 months now.
So yeah, I actually have been meaning to do something like that for a while. But I can, whenever I want to do it, when I have a piece of like fruit that I have lying around that needs to use up, I'm like, oh, I want to throw it in a bottle of vodka. And then I look around the house and all my jars. So this is a good question for you because I've never actually done this before. What kind of bottle do you use? Do you just use like any old mason jar? Because all the bottles that I have just have like the narrower, like a narrow, I'm like, I'd have to chop up the pear to get it in there really small.
Okay, hold on. Well, I'll break out some things from my fridge. We'll take a podcast mini break while I run to the fridge, and I feel like I need to show you this.
Show you? Yeah, I would. Okay.
So this is the raspberry cachaca. And
nice.
I just put it in a sterilized jar. This used to be olives.
Perfect.
It's, you just clean it really well. Put it in the dishwasher, or hot soapy water even. It's fine. Alcohol will kill pretty much anything. So you just don't want the smell coming off of it.
Okay.
These are red currants that I put in rum, in a dark rum.
Amazing. Oh, beautiful color.
Yeah. And you can kind of see a little bit. I don't know if you can see on the podcast. Yeah. You see them there. And then these are blueberries in a dark rum as well. I have a couple different kinds of rum, Newfoundlander. And you don't see too many of the blueberries because I've been slowly eating them.
and they're rum infused.
Oh my gosh.
It's lovely.
They're so good. So it's like a very light version of, it's not you're not just getting like a full shot of rum on it because the juices have seeped in and that's where the color comes from.
Any old clean jar will do. Any old clean sterilizer. Yeah. A great idea, especially if you have booze lying around, which seems like you have a lot of.
Well, you don't need a lot even. Like the berry, it's mostly berries, because it fills up, you fill up the jar with berries first, chuck the alcohol over, easy.
Great.
Anyway, sorry. And so I just get really excited about zero waste. Can you tell? So do you have a garden? You have a garden, you said? Or?
I do. I have a very small, we're downtown Toronto, so it's a very small garden. I have gone through great lengths over the years to actually try to grow vegetables, but I have now just realized that there's just not enough sun back there. So mostly I just grow like herbs, edible-y kind of things that'll grow in shade. And this year I actually got a really good yield of tomatoes because I did something new. I've been trying to regrow vegetables from vegetable scraps. I don't know if you've seen this, but
Yeah,
so
yeah.
so if you have like a stump of celery, you can put it in like water. So it's like just in a little like jar with water, and it'll start to regrow leaves.
Hmm.
And you can do the same with other types of root vegetables like beets. You can regrow the beet greens from like the little, stem that you cut off. So I came across some article where, no, it was my girlfriend. She's like, did you know you can grow tomatoes from a slice of tomato? So I was like, yeah, right. So I took a tomato that was like wrinkly, and I took a couple slices and I put them just under a small layer of soil. And it took a while, like it took about 2 weeks. And I kept on phoning her. I'm like, this isn't working. Like, this isn't working. At what point in time do I throw them out? And then sure enough, it probably took about 3 weeks. You start seeing these little shoots come up from the seeds. And from those shoots, I got like, I was even giving the plants away. I must have got over 20 plants,
Wow.
little tomato plants from these little, yeah. So I didn't have to go buy any tomato plants this year, which was great because I also know there is a shortage of tomato plants this year because it was very
Mm.
hard to find them with the COVID situation, I heard, to
Wow.
buy them in places. So
So all you have to do is
that's
cut a couple
that's about
slices
it.
of tomatoes, stick them under some soil in
So
a dark area.
no, light. It needs
Light.
to be
They need light.
warm, like warm and light. So I just like on my windowsill in the kitchen, and just keep it moist and be diligent, and eventually you'll get some little tomato plants growing
So
from it.
cool. And then you transplant them and then they grow and then
Yeah,
you eat all of their
I
offspring.
know. I
Um,
just finished. I just finished the tomatoes that we had this week. So
yeah, I've got a
yeah,
bunch of
yeah.
green ones here.
Oh, I love the green tomatoes. I love frying them up in like olive oil with salt and pepper and garlic, and they're great. I
So
love
good.
eating them like that
I'm
too.
excited.
You don't want to wait.
Well, I want to talk more food tips, but I have a little lightning
Yes.
round. I usually put it at
Oh,
the beginning because we need
let's
like
go.
an icebreaker, but I don't think you and
Yes.
I need an icebreaker. I feel like
Oh,
you
sorry.
and I and Ruby especially have broken the ice.
Yes.
But let's do it anyway. So what's your favorite flavor?
Oh, geez. That's a tough one. I have a sweet tooth for sure. So and of course it tends to lead toward chocolate. So it's not a problem for me to wake up in the morning and possibly grab some chocolate chips out of my baking compartment and eat them first thing in the morning with my coffee. So
That's kind of like a
there's
muffin
there's
without the
that.
like a chocolate chip muffin without the
Yeah.
muffin.
Yeah. So I also love Earl Grey. Like I
Mm.
love the flavor and the scent of Earl Grey tea. Scents are also a big thing for me too. Um, so yeah, and savory, I don't know. That's a hard one. It's really hard. That's a hard one. But I think I nailed those two for sure. Are like two kind of flavor profiles that I tend to gravitate towards. I don't
Okay.
know if that's what you were looking for.
Yeah, for sure. So those are flavors. What about favorite foods?
This is mood based,
Hmm.
totally. Honestly, it's really hard. Um, you know, for years when someone said, "Oh, if you could have your last meal, what would it be?" And it would be like duck confit leg with, like the French frites with, mayo type of thing.
Hmm.
But I mean, these days, like I'm loving vegetables so much too. So I don't know. Like I'm also really am totally satisfied sitting down to like a plate of really nicely cooked and seared broccoli with like
Mm.
ginger and chilies and that kind of thing too.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think it's whatever's good that's right in front of you at that moment that
exactly.
surprises you. Like
Yeah.
even if it's not something that you're like craving, then you have it and it's so
Yeah.
much better. And you're like, that's my favorite right now.
Yeah. And then the other thing too is that I also appreciate food much more when someone else is cooking it for me.
Mm.
It tastes better, it seems.
Yep, that duck confit is going to be a million times better if somebody else makes it for you instead of
For
you
sure.
standing over that pot of hot oil frying
Yeah,
the
for
frites.
sure. For sure.
Okay, easier one then. Favorite Toronto
Mhm.
restaurant?
Oh, this is another one that I think comes down to mood. I definitely have food cravings, and I also tend to. I'm a creature of habit, So I also tend to go to restaurants that are consistent, so I know what I'm going to get and I'm not disappointed.
Yeah.
But also the staff and the owners and the environment are also extremely important to me. So, it's like I have my favorite Italian sandwich that is down the street that has been there forever. And if I'm craving like a spicy fried Italian sandwich, I go there. I have my favorite place if I want like an Asian fusion of like a fish type of thing. It's down the street. There's a restaurant called Dilo down there, the sandwich place. I'm like old school California sandwich girl. I kind of have my little, I love my Korean hot pots. I live just above like Kachi. It's because it's at the top of my street. And, I've been going there for years. I used to have a favorite dumpling place, but they closed.
Oh no, which one was it?
I know. It was called Spadina Garden. And it was not even on Spadina. It was like on like, I think Dundas North, more closer to the hospitals downtown.
Yeah. It was open when I lived there. I remember that one.
Yeah, but they made the best. Like I would phone and they'd be like, "Oh, we're sold out of dumplings for tonight."
Again.
But it's kind of like I have those little pockets of like I love also going to Bar Revolve, and it's only because of two things I always get there. I always get whatever salad they have in season, and I get the smoked mackerel on bread. Yeah. And it's literally like a little container of smoked mackerel, and as soon as you can spread it on the bread like butter. And it's just like, it reminds me of home. So, and then I have one of my favorite restaurants is Opus in Toronto. It's been around forever. And Chef Jason Cox took me under his wing just out of culinary school. And I did an extended stage there. And I go there because I have a relationship, and it makes it's also how it makes me feel that is just as important, as anything, right? It's the love that goes into it that makes the difference to me.
I don't think that was an easier question. I think that was an equally difficult question. And I think this one might be even harder. These are not short questions, but I love that one because I know what you mean. You have differences depending on your mood, depending on the time, depending on if you're eating in or getting takeout, which is very important during COVID times.
I know.
So you used to host Best Recipes Ever. Yes. What was actually the best recipe ever on Best Recipes Ever?
Sorry, I'm taking another sip of my drink. The best recipe that there's recipes that I still get people like emailing me about. Like I had a guy email me or get a hold of me through social media saying like, where did the cabbage rolls recipe go? The cabbage roll recipes was always on the website. Where did it go? It's disappeared right now. That was my go-to cabbage roll recipe. And you have like all of these people that have their things that they like.
What about you?
Oh my God, we did so many recipes.
There's not one that sticks out when you're like, that was the best time filming that. It was so delicious. I ate the whole thing after.
Oh, there was a couple of recipes that I still use over and over again right now. One is the gluten-free brownie recipe that I've adapted slightly to like my own whatever, but there's just a basic gluten-free brownie recipe that's to die for, and it just uses a little bit of rice flour. And I've even taught the kids how to do it because they like making brownies all the time, and I don't like buying the stuff from the box because it's, I keep on telling them it's super easy to make, but
so pure chocolate and a ton of butter?
Pure chocolate. It's always a ton of butter. Brownies are basically a ton of butter, a ton of melted chocolate, and a ton of eggs, and then a little bit of flour to hold it all together. And in this case, we just use the rice flour. There's a bulgogi recipe I think that I keep making over and over again. But I think on set we had a lot more fun with like the quirky kind of holiday-y like things. Like we did this, I can't even remember what exactly the name is. It's a strawberry charlotte, but you had to like put the lady fingers all around the side. And people kind of loved that, where you get a little bit more. And like when we did reindeer cupcakes and like things like that on set were always fun to do,
That
Giving
sounds like
people
a great idea.
ideas that inspire them to get in the kitchen more.
Yeah, and you never see those old school cakes except in like I see them in
Yeah.
in Italian bakeries here, like traditional Italian
Yeah.
bakeries, and they just look so beautiful. But it's like it's something that
Hmm.
I would never buy, and except you have unless you have a big family gathering.
Yeah, no, I know. I know, especially these days too,
Yeah,
right? It's like
yeah.
everything is like smaller portions
Yeah.
and
Except,
yeah.
now's the time to make a cake. You're stuck at home, make a
Well,
cake.
exactly. This is another thing because I'm trying to come up with holiday recipes and I'm like, well, this is the time that we can actually maybe get a little bit more elaborate and take more time in the kitchen and do things that we maybe wouldn't normally do. So,
Okay. And then you end up with food waste, which is why we're here to talk about today.
hmm,
Really, you have a new cookbook coming out
I do.
next year. Why did
Yes.
you decide to write your second cookbook about food waste?
Um, because it's an extremely important issue. And it's something I'm very passionate about, and it's something that I've been really passionate about for a long time. I think because people have been asking me that question more and more, and I think it actually basically stems down to how I was brought up.
Was it your
Um,
idea, or did they pitch you? How did it work
no,
exactly?
no, it was definitely my idea. Actually, the first cookbook pitches that I did, uh, the very first one, and this was probably, I don't know, quite a few years ago now. It was at one of the pitches was actually about leftovers.
Mm.
And, the feeling back then was like leftovers, it's kind of like, I don't know, like it's a little bit old school. Like, do we really want to do it? And, they took one of the other pitches. But I think as food insecurity and, the zero waste movement and the food waste issue has become such a bigger deal, I was able to re-pitch the book, um, because it's not about leftovers, right? It's not about just taking what you've cooked the night before and reheating it. This is about reducing food waste on a household level, with tips and strategies that are definitely attainable on a daily basis.
Mm.
And I think it's just an extremely important issue. The amount of food waste, I mean, it's like
63% of the
60,
food in
over
Canada?
60% of the food in Canada is unnecessarily wasted.
Mm.
And I mean, that translates to, I think, like generally speaking, a household could save over $1,000 a year just in the amount of food that they waste.
Right.
Um,
What did
and,
you
and
think? Like when you saw that statistic, what was your reaction? That's
well,
and the statistic is from where exactly?
I've been working with a campaign called Love Food Hate Waste Canada, and it's lovefoodhatewaste.ca. Their website is amazing as well. They have tons of tips and recipes and strategies, and a lot of these numbers that we're talking about today. If you just want to familiarize yourself with those, definitely hit up lovefoodhatewaste.ca. But it's a consumer campaign all across Canada, and it's a bunch of, it's like government, provincial, bigger stores, like everyone trying to get together to educate people about the food waste issue and ways to reduce it. And I've been working with them, which is amazing. We've been working together throughout the fall, doing some little campaigns here and there. But what was the question again?
Um, what did you think when you
What
read
do I
that
think?
statistic?
Oh, it just shocked me because as a person with a culinary background who's was taught about how to reduce this in a kitchen, in a restaurant kitchen, how, I mean food is money, right? So if you're running a restaurant, you're like, one of the things you have to keep in mind is reducing your food waste. You do not want to throw anything in the garbage, right? Like that's money to you. And then just even on a basic household level, and just like with my kids and picky eaters and like how I was shopping, and then with work, food styling and recipe development, you just start to notice all of these things that are easily tossed, right? And it was a little overwhelming to me. And then you get into the point where I get overly concerned and even emotional about the food that's getting thrown away. I know everyone gets frustrated with me in my house because like every now and then someone wants to order out, and I'm like, we can't order out. There's half the leftover chicken in the fridge. There's broccoli that needs to be eaten. Like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
you know, so there's a bit of a compromise.
I get it.
Every now and then.
I don't know if my family watches this podcast, but there have definitely been Christmases where I've been like,
Yeah,
no, we need to eat the
exactly.
leftovers now.
I know.
This is not a day to cook a steak.
I know. And I mean, I'm trying not to let it get to me too much, which is why the book has been such a great way to kind of just get it all out. But also in my job, clients hire me with a budget in mind. So I go to work, I have a budget. I know the food that I am food styling or recipe developing or whatnot has to look the best, be the best, sometimes taste the best. Yeah. So over all the years of me doing that, I have just accumulated so many tips and strategies to do it. For me, it's kind of second nature. So I felt like I need to help people. I need to educate people that it's really not that difficult.
But what about on MasterChef? Again, they're throwing money down the drain, but it's not a restaurant. It's not being run in the same way. So like on cooking shows like that, what happens to the leftover
cooking
food?
shows? So the cooking shows is, I mean, every cooking show will be affiliated with somewhere that they can donate their food. So, I mean, I don't know what MasterChef is doing now or who they're affiliated with. In Toronto, a lot of the time it's Second Harvest. So what will happen is any excess of food not used, you know, Second Harvest will come in, pick it up, drop it off to people in need. One of the difficulties with, I think, donating food on any level for any big business in the past anyways, has been, you know, food safety. So food safety is also just is a concern, right?
It was the same in catering, exactly the same. Like,
you know, anything that's been touched, anything that's been breathed on now, even especially, and you know, anything that, you know, has been opened, anything that you buy in bulk, like all those type of things, it's like, it can't be donated because of the food safety issues. However, there are new things popping up, new little not-for-profit organizations like Second Harvest here has another affiliate called Food Rescue that will come and pick up products on a smaller scale, and you can work with them. So me as a food stylist is really great because after a job, if I have things, you know, or a photographer or whatnot on a smaller scale, they'll come pick it up within 24 hours and find someone that needs it. I mean, there's lots of even apps going around here and there where restaurants can, you know, donate. Like there's so many things that are happening, which is so great. But what I'm trying to do, and with partnering with Love Food Hate Waste Canada, is I just want to, I'm starting small here. Like I can't, it's so much I just want to talk about food waste at a household level, because then then you get into packaging, then you get into plastics, then you get into food sustainability and food insecurity, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So I'm like, the only thing I'm really good at is trying to figure out the food aspect of it at home. So that's what I'm here to talk about.
Yeah, let's concentrate on what we can do ourselves and what the people around us can do. And I kind of need to tell you a story, and it makes me really sad when I think about it. It's like when you talk about your family and how you need to eat your leftovers. Well, first of all, do you think people are going to get better at eating their leftovers based on your upcoming book, for example?
Of course.
I hope so.
The other thing is that Love Food Hate Waste just commissioned a campaign to do some research on what's been happening during COVID, which I found was extremely interesting, because all I've been reading about in the papers is people are buying too much, people are hoarding, there's more food waste than ever now. But actually, they did a Canadian campaign, and it actually showed that over 90% of Canadians want to know more and educate themselves and more eager to take on this food waste issue. And even though we have been shopping more, their food waste has actually gone down, which kind of brings me back to the old school way of living, right? When we're not allowed to do certain things, we learn how to do other things, right? So we might be buying more, but that food is now maybe lasting for longer in our fridges. We are cooking more at home, more than eating out in restaurants. We're working at home, so that food's getting eaten. Like, I don't know how many times I've gone to buy groceries and have all these things that I'm going to do, and then work gets busy and I'm on set for 12 hours for the next 2 days, and I come home and I'm like, oh, the food that I wanted to cook. Like, now you're home all the time. But also food's gotten extremely expensive. I like I spent $18 on 2 heads of asparagus last week for a work job.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I mean, out of season, it makes sense, but
It's out of season,
$18, $9
but I'm
each.
it was for work. I'm not paying for it.
No,
It was all eaten. But I'm like, just the prices of food. Yes, it's not in season, all of those things. But I was like, oh my God, but it's just like,
most of the food we eat is not in season in Canada. I mean, half the year. So it's what you have to do.
But I mean, I also think that people are way more of a budget now.
Yeah.
So they're making their food last longer. So, I mean, I'm glad to see those numbers go down, which was nice.
I want to check out that study for sure, and see especially how big it was. It'd be really amazing if it was a really large scale. So the story I want to tell you is about my friend, and I love this friend dearly. He's a good person. He is really eco-conscious. He bought an electric car last year. He is a member. He follows the David Suzuki Foundation. He supports Équiterre here in Quebec. He's really like kind of argumentative on Facebook about people doing non-green things. He won't buy from companies, certain companies. And then he bought $20 worth of veal once, and he made a veal stew with a portion of the veal. It was not a lot of the veal in the stew because it was organic, and you don't get a lot of organic veal for $20. Anyway, he had leftover veal in the fridge, uncooked. And I came back to his place a week later to make another meal, and that uncooked veal was still there. Ooh. And so that really bothered me. And I didn't say anything, but it made me very uncomfortable. And it's like, that's just so wasteful of such a beautiful product. Not to mention just the that he's wasting money, but that he's wasting something that's so luxurious to me. And then
I can't wait to hear how this ends.
I made a gluten-free, dairy-free lemon meringue pie. And I don't make lemon curd lightly. Like this was not I'm just going to whip this together and bring it to your house, and it's something I do every week. And I made the dough, a gluten-free, dairy-free dough. I put a lot of effort into this pie, and I brought a big portion of it to his place for dessert because he was splurging on a really nice meal. And I thought this will be a really nice way to end the meal. It'll be a treat. And when we had leftover pie, and I said, do you want to keep it, or do you want me to keep it? Will you eat it? And he said, yeah, I'll definitely eat it. Well,
oh man,
I came back 2 weeks later,
aching.
And that pie was still in the fridge. And we never had dinner together again.
But the pie was probably actually weeping.
Yeah,
if
it was by then.
If
exactly.
Knows lemon meringue pies,
the meringue was weeping. Actually, that's
crying to be eaten.
Yeah, that's how I should have ended the story. But no, and so I'm still friends with this guy. Obviously, it did not break up our friendship. But it did upset me. So I'm wondering, when you have all these zero waste tips that we're going to get into really soon, how do you keep this from not affecting your relationships with your family or with your friends? And should we get upset about these things, or should I just be like, no, this is okay, this is ridiculous?
You know what? Nobody really likes to be told what to do, right? So we have to err on caution. But I mean, it's just education. It's just educating. Really.
But how do you get people to eat those leftovers? Like, that was a beautiful pie.
I know.
Like, you didn't have to cook it again. You didn't have to reheat it. Just get a spoon. Like, how do you change people's mentality in that way?
So I mean, what I do. I mean, I'm just going to tell you how I deal with my family. I ask them questions. So for instance, my partner will go buy a bag of apples because they're so cheap. But then that bag of apples, he'll come home and I'll be like, we're not going to go through that bag of apples. Like, but he's like, yeah, but they were like, they were this in comparison to this. And I'm like, yeah, but we will probably realistically only eat. So I'll be like, realistically, we'll probably only eat, let's say 5 apples over the course of the next week. So like when you break it, I think sometimes when you break it down or re-ask the question, like it's just education. Like even with the kids too, like when we go grocery shopping or when we order things, or I'm always about making a list, right? So, I'll go grocery shopping. I'm like, what do we need? What do you want? And then, I mean, one way to deal with it is just to take control, which I do, which is not necessarily educating people at all, because I'm just doing all the work.
Yeah. Or well, you're the one who's going to make the applesauce. It's not your partner making the applesauce.
But I think just like asking the question, but also giving people some ideas, because a lot of people don't know about food safety. So I think when you talk about food safety as an issue too, then people be like, oh, okay, well, meat actually can't last that long in the fridge. So
yeah, maybe it was an accident.
Giving
with
them
the veal.
options, it's like if you're not going to eat it over the next 2 or 3 days, put it in the freezer. And then at any point in time, you can thaw it out. Actually, I'm just reading a new book that was written by Peter Sanigan, who opened the Sanigan's Market last night. And I was reading about meat, and it was kind of like reminding me of culinary school again. But, he was saying like, how long meat can actually last in your fridge when you bring it home from the grocery store or the butcher depends on how long it took to get from where it was slaughtered to your butcher. And you don't really know that. So you kind of always do like the 2 or 3 day rule, right? Because it could have been, at the grocery store for up to, 4 or 5 days before that. But I think, giving them tips, giving them tools, giving them options. Also, you didn't have to leave the whole pie. Maybe you could have taken half home for yourself.
I didn't leave the whole pie. I didn't bring the whole pie. I'm just going to state that.
But I mean, honestly, it's you can't control people, and it's just the more education, I think, than anything, and just giving people, options. Just if you see the meat in the fridge, just saying, you can just pop this in the freezer at any point in time. It'll last for like up to 6 months. At any point in time, you can have the veal.
If you remember that it's there and you label it, and you're someone who will then eat your leftovers out of the freezer, which I don't mind, but some people do.
Yeah.
And so I guess my question for you, really, this podcast is not about other people. It's about me. It's how do I get off my high horse? Like how do I nicely, not freak out about these things?
I think it's just understanding that everyone's different and everyone's going to move at their own pace with this. I mean, I'm so hard on myself, and I'm so hard on like my family about this stuff, that you also don't want to take away the joy of eating.
Yeah, you don't want to be
because
military.
when you take that away, then food doesn't become fun anymore. And I know, because food is my business and I deal with it every day, there's lots of days where food is not fun.
Yeah.
And just because like I find it sometimes overwhelming for me, even just on an emotional level, which is unfortunate. But it's just because I'm so passionate about it. I go to grocery stores and I get really upset when I see, broccoli all wrapped in plastic, and it's like, there's things like that. And, but you got to just let it go, right? Don't let it keep you up at night. Stress is not good.
No, it's true. And guilt isn't either. So how do you deal, if you do have to throw something out, there's a lot of guilt associated with that waste. How do you deal with that guilt? Because inevitably we will all waste.
Yeah, I just recently this summer I actually bought myself like a tumbling composter in the back. So when I am throwing away the food scraps, that can be composted for me for next year for, my herbs in my garden. That makes me feel a little bit better about it. And pawning things off on friends and dropping things off to people, like if I have stuff that I want to, get rid of or whatnot, like I will just send out a text to a bunch of people. I'm like, who needs peppers? Does anyone need this? Does anyone need that? Come pick it up on my doorstep, or I'll make a big pot of something. And once again, that's more work for me, but it makes me feel a little bit better about things.
Yeah. So you must get a lot of questions then, or I assume you will, or maybe you've played this kind of game with radio where you have like the call-in show, and so
my
says,
gosh.
"What do you do with this? What do you do with that?" So I
love those.
and I have a couple of those questions. They're fun, right? So
yes,
I didn't reach out to people in that way, but I have a bunch of like pretend questions like that.
Okay.
I don't want you to think that I'm asking them all for myself, because I'm asking them on behalf of other people, but perhaps I too am curious about some of them.
Okay.
So what do
Hopefully
you do?
I know the answers.
I'm sure you can come up with something for this. You seem to know what you're doing in the kitchen. What do you do with wilted green onions?
Oh, well, number one, you can plant them and regrow them. So I have a little pot of green onion. Actually, I'm going to show you. So these are wilted green onions. So I've just cut them off and replanted the roots.
Mm-hmm.
And as you can see, this one's already starting to regrow. So they'll start to regrow, and then I chop them and they regrow, and I chop them and I regrow.
How much sun all year and just in the windowsill?
Well, actually, I just moved it in 2 weeks ago, and it is starting to regrow. So I think maybe the change of the weather might affect it. Mm-hmm. But if not, like the next batch of wilted green onions that I'll have, I'll just cut them off, stick them in, and watch them regrow. The other thing too about any of those things that are wilted herbs, wilted green onions, any of those type of things, it still has flavor, right? So it might not be great as a garnish anymore, but you can always add flavor to a soup, a stock, a braise, a sauce, chop them up, throw them in there. It's still going to add flavor. You probably might not get any more crunch from your green onions. You might not want them on a salad. The other thing with anything wilted like that is like a softer thing, or even rosemary for that matter, any of the harder herbs, you can finely chop them and put them in ice cube trays. Mm-hmm. So what I do is if I have a bunch, I'll chop a bunch up and take a tablespoon of each chopped herb, put it in the ice cube tray, and then fill the ice cube trays up with oil or stock. Freeze the little ice cubes, transfer the ice cubes to a freezer safe bag, and then I have flavor that I can take out and just add to anything that I want to add flavor to, like another soup or sauce or whatnot, because the flavor is still there, right?
Can you freeze them directly, or do you have to blanch them first? Or
so you can freeze. I freeze the harder herbs directly. So herbs like the rosemary, sometimes sage, thyme, like the twiggier ones, you can literally like take the whole stems and everything and wrap them up tightly in like a compressed log and tie them up, put it in a freezer safe bag, and throw them in the freezer. This is also really good with bay leaves, like fresh laurel and lime leaves, even ginger, like fresh ginger, just throw it. Sometimes I even find it's easier. I buy a bunch of fresh ginger, I throw it in the freezer. When I need it, take it out, grate what I need off while it's frozen, and then put it back in the freezer.
Yeah, because then
I don't have to worry. Yeah, when I don't have to worry about it going bad in the fridge, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So it's always there.
What about celeriac or celery root? Because I never get a CSA basket because I really don't like the flavor of celery root, but I also don't want to waste it if I do end up with it. So
you don't like celeriac?
No, it's very bitter. Yeah, okay. and I don't mind bitter, but I find celery root, there's something about the celery flavor with the bitterness that really turns me off.
So celery root, I typically only buy if I'm making something very specific with it. My kids don't like it, but they do love it. It's a great addition to a soup for sure. Or like a puree. You could do like a half potato celeriac, puree. I love it in a soup. So what you'd want to do is, of course, you take off the peel or the skin. It's quite gnarly looking. Mm-hmm. So you have to get off like all of those little gnarly bits and chop it up. But you could also simmer it in a milk or a dairy-free milk or something like that, and puree it into like any sort of like sauce, or even like a creamy, you could add tons of cheese into it and make like a cheesy kind of sauce with it, stuff like that, and that'll mellow out the flavor a little bit. Celeriac's also, when I think of celeriac, potato, I think of bechamel. I think of, you can start adding some warming spices like nutmeg to it and things like that, which will sweeten up the flavor. The warming spices might work. But.
That's good to know. Okay. I like that one. What about sprouted potatoes? Are they going to kill you?
No, they're not.
What do
So
you do?
sprouted potatoes, all you have to do is take out the little sprouts and then just continue on.
Why do you have to take out
Um,
the sprouts? What's bad about them?
you know what? I actually did some digging about this, and I couldn't really find any information besides the fact that they may not taste good,
Hmm.
or it may just not be nice, and like it might be nice thing, not a nice thing to see.
Yeah, but it's not a
The other
digestion thing.
I
It's not a
don't,
toxin
not
thing.
that, did you come on? I couldn't really
No,
come across
I don't think
anything
so.
other than just cut them off.
Okay.
I mean, they're only little too. If it's really sprouted and really rubbery and like soft, then, just pitch it. But the other thing a lot of people do is they store their potatoes with their onions,
And that's bad, right?
and that's bad.
That'll make them
Because
sprout?
it'll make them sprout faster.
Okay.
So just separate them.
Got
Just
it.
and I mean, I only learned that even a couple of years ago, just through digging up research and stuff like that. Yeah, the onions release an ethylene gas that just causes things to spoil faster. Which is another something that if you're looking for resources on how to properly store or where to store your fruits and vegetables, once again, you could go to lovefoodhatewaste.ca. They have so many great tips and storage tips about that. But also, like, it's so simple, like simple things about where to store things in your fridge and how to store things properly, will make things last longer. Just simple things like storing your potatoes separate from your onions, like know that where the fridge door is, that's like not, it's like the warmest part of your fridge. Where to store your meat, so in case it doesn't drip down onto other things, you want to store your meat at the bottom of the fridge, it's not the top. And it's I love to just have little compartments in my fridge. I've bought a bunch of little bins that I put in my fridge that
Mm.
certain things go in. So you have your crisper drawers, but alongside that, you also have these little bins that I know that this goes in, and I know that that goes in, and the kids, and, my partner knows that too. So
Mm. What about carrot tops? It's something that's not carrot top pesto because I like it, but there's only so much carrot top pesto you can eat. It's a very strong grassy flavor.
yes, carrot. Well, I mean, whenever I do the carrot top pesto, I usually mix it with something. So I'm
Mm.
like doing 50-50 carrot top and probably something sweeter like a basil or something like that. You want to offset, even with like arugula and more bitter things. I usually 50-50 with something that's a little bit sweeter to balance it out.
Mm.
Um, Carrot tops, I mean, if you're not particularly pleased about, like, you don't find the flavor of them pleasing, you could blanch them first, of course, that'll mellow out the flavor. But the other thing is I just chop them up and I add them to stews, sauces, braises, all those type of things. Just chop them up and add them in like I would parsley.
Mm. Nice. What about if I have an onion in the fridge, a wilting head of celery, bag of carrots, sauerkraut, Dijon, miso, and pears in my fridge?
Okay.
Using any kind of vinegar and any standard condiment, plus pantry staples.
So have you writing this down?
What do you make?
Okay, so I have a wilted, was there a head of lettuce in there?
No.
No? Yeah, so I have sauerkraut. What was it?
Onion, celery,
Onion, celery.
carrots,
Yeah.
sauerkraut, Dijon, miso, and pears.
Might be really nice. So when it comes to these random types of things we
Yeah.
have rolling around the fridge, my favorite thing to do with them is any sort of braised or stewed legume.
Hmm.
So there's like an apple curry dal that I do, which is literally you do it with the pear. So it's like the one apple, you have your curry flavors, you have whatever vegetables you have lying around that you dice up to start your aromatic bed. And then you add your lentils, your dal, and you just let it stew until it's like all melded together. And then miso would probably be a great addition to that as well.
Yeah.
And the sauerkraut too, you could use just as like a topping or something as a side. There's something else that you had in there though too.
The Dijon?
the Dijon could go in a curry, no problem.
Yeah, add a
Yeah,
nice
because curries, because a lot of Indian dishes have the
mustard
mustard
seeds.
seeds,
Yep,
right?
yep.
So, because you can hide any, like, you can hide anything. It sounds so bad, but you can really play with those flavors when you deeply stew or braise something.
It mellows things out a little
It
bit.
mellows things
Yeah.
out, things stew together. You can play with it. You could add a little bit of jam for sweetness. You could add a little, you have a couple tomatoes that are not so great. You add those in for some acidity, or, lemon, and you just kind of play with it as it stews and develops flavor.
Yeah. What's on its way out in your fridge right now?
Oh, we actually need groceries. Because I did do a good clean this week, so I'm trying to think. I have 4 chorizo, spicy chorizo in there that needs to be used up, and I was thinking about doing a caldo verde over the weekend with that because it's nice and warming. I have some oregano that's wilting, so I'll probably just end up throwing that in the freezer. But we're pretty good right now, actually, that I think about it.
I believe you. I'll take you at your word on
No,
that.
no, because I literally just cleaned everything out. Like, that's why I made the elderberry stuff.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I know what I have. I have half of a rutabaga in there.
Ooh, that's tricky. What do you do? See, that's my expression with
I
celeriac.
know. So the thing is that I love rutabaga, so I actually eat it raw. But when, like, rutabagas are big, right?
They are.
Like, I grew up thinking that rutabaga was turnip. Like, we called it turnip. And then I moved to Toronto, and I would go to places and I'm like, where's the turnip? And they show me these things that I'm like, that's a beet. And they're like, no, turnips are actually these smaller things. So yeah, the rutabaga, because they're typically bigger, right? But if I, like, for me, I would just do a rutabaga puree. Like, I do a puree of something, and like a mash of something with it, probably over the next day or so.
Yeah, that makes sense. And
Yeah.
the nice thing is those keep, but once they're cut, they don't keep as long, so you are in a little bit of a rush there.
Yes. Which is another great, like a lot of the tips on the website, and also I have a website too called thezerowastekitchen.ca, which I have tons of recipes and tips as well. But like, yeah, just how you store things and understanding how shelf life works, because I have gotten into, people tend to buy things for convenience, right? We all buy things for convenience. We all want our lives to be easier. So things that are pre-chopped, things that are broken down, all of those type of things we pay extra for, but also they will not last as long in our fridge as we would want. You buy these things whole, they will last longer, they are cheaper. Like, oh God, those boneless, skinless chicken breasts. Like, oh God. I'm like, just buy the whole chicken. You're gonna save so much money buying the whole chicken, and you're gonna have all these other things that you could do with the whole chicken. But it's convenience, right?
Yeah.
Which I totally understand. But understanding that, for example, broccoli has a respiration life. So broccoli goes bendy fairly quickly. But if you buy it whole on the stem, it won't go as bendy as if you buy the small crowns or if it's broken down. Because as soon as you start cutting into the broccoli, all of the nutrients kind of goes into the air type of thing. It respires, it goes out. So it's like little things like that it's like, let's just save some money. Let's buy the whole head of broccoli, and you know what I mean? Cut it up when we need it, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway,
is that your ultimate?
Go on and on.
Is that your ultimate food saving tip, or that was my next question? What's your ultimate food saving tip?
Oh my gosh. So, there's 3 key things that I want to drill into people's head when it comes to how to reduce your food waste. So, number 1 is, and this I learned in culinary school, it's called first in, first out rule. So it's a way of getting rid of what needs to be used up first. And like it's a way of monitoring stock and like all of those type of things. So what I tell people is, before you even, let's start with not even like, let's start with going and buying groceries, right? Let's start at the basics, right? Before even going and buying groceries, what I want you to do is I want you to look and see what you already have.
Yeah.
So look in your fridge and see what's there first. And let's say you have a few things that you know need to be using up. Put that at the front of your fridge, or even put it on your counter for your, you know you're going to get rid of that tonight. And then make your shopping list from there. So then you make your shopping list or your meal plan. Now, meal planning is a little bit, I even sometimes find it like, oh, meal planning, but it can be as simple as, okay, I'm going to buy a whole roast chicken, and tonight I'm going to roast the whole chicken. Then after dinner, whatever's left over, I'm going to put here, and I'm going to use that maybe for tacos at one night and then something else the next night. So you kind of already, even if you just have it in the back of your head and you make a list from there, right? Knowing what you already have and you don't need to replenish, and just making your grocery list, and then going to the store and buying only what you need. So we have fridge first, looking through your fridge, well, I should say fridge and pantry first, but looking through and seeing what you have that needs to be used up, and then only make your list on what you don't have.
Right.
Then making that list and sticking to it, right? And then when you go to the grocery store, and this is the hardest one for me, is not to overbuy.
Yeah. I go to Chantal Market, which is the farmer's market here, and I go with a friend who has a vehicle because it's easier for me to bring huge amounts of things home. And I will always make it through that produce, always, no matter how much I buy. But I think he actually likes driving me there because he laughs at how much I get. I cannot control myself. I'm not that market, but my freezer is ridiculous, like absolutely ridiculous. It's full all the time. I know what's going to last and how long it's going to last. So at least I'm not a person wasting all these things, but I feel for you. I get it.
So like those are like, if we can start from there, then the rest is just like all these little tips and things that are icing on the cake, right? Like, just knowing your fruits and vegetables, and knowing your, the meats that you're buying, knowing their storage lives, knowing that you can always pop something in the freezer need be, if you're worried that you're not going to be able to be home for the next couple days, just like throw it in the freezer. Labeling. There's like, we can go on and on with all the information. The other thing too is a big one is cooking. This is my partner. He laughs at me because he'll see me cooking and he's like, it's only 4 of us, right? So I'm like, keep reminding me of that, because I always think we're going to eat more than we always do. And that's another thing, not overcooking, portion planning tools, like all those type of things.
Unless you're the kind of person that wants too much because you do love leftovers, in which case you should call me you should put those in sealable containers in single portions in your freezer, and then you have a lunch or you have a quick dinner the next time you're really busy. Do you have a favorite zero waste recipe?
Well, I think those like long stewy braises and things like that, I love, because like I said, you can kind of hide anything in there.
But one recipe.
One recipe.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is because this one I think has the greatest impact. I have a reusable, freezer safe bag in my freezer. And when I am prepping my food throughout the week, whenever I'm cooking anything, I pull out a bowl, and any produce or any scrap that I know I can make a stock or broth out of, I put in the bowl, and then we eat dinner. And if there's any bones left after dinner, I just immediately put it all in the freezer, all those scraps.
So everything from the bowl and the bones.
Yeah, so I mean, sometimes I'll separate it because I do love a good veggie stock as well. So you can also just separate one for just bones and anything that'll flavor it, like more meat based stuff like that, and anything that would be more for a veggie stock.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably about every 2 weeks, like I did it on the weekend, I just make a huge batch of stock,
Yeah.
and then it's free. I never have to buy stock or store bought stock or broth. I always have a bag full in the fridge.
Do people get freaked out about that when you're like, okay, I'm going to take your leftover bones here and your leftover bones here and put it all together? I mean, it's all getting boiled. It's all getting sterilized in the pot. I just
don't tell them. I mean, this is mostly like immediate family, but yeah, I mean, we're boiling these things for sometimes like bones, especially for 6 to 8 hours, right?
Depending. And then you're straining, like you're getting all of the solids out of there too.
And then anything that like typically, like let's say you boil, like you're grilling chicken or something, it's super charred, or you're doing like you have something that's meat based that has a lot of seasoning or like spicy or whatever, I just rinse it.
Yeah,
just give it a quick rinse.
Because if you have a flavor that's going to get into the stock, you just wash it off first.
So that's not necessarily a recipe, but I feel like it makes like the biggest kind of daily impact of what. And and then from there I just make I have like, you know, the base to make probably 3 or 4 soups or stews from there. So
do you have a pressure cooker by the way?
No.
Oh, that'll change your life. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
I have one of those multi cookers. I have a Philips multi cooker.
That'll do it.
But I don't know. I'm old school. I like things going long on my
and a clear broth, because the pressure cooker will make it cloudy.
Yeah, I like checking it and having the smell in the house.
It's true.
And
it's not quite
I don't know. Anyway.
Okay. So I have one difficult question for you, and maybe one easier one, and then we've run out of time. I've taken way too much of your time already, and I really appreciate it.
Oh my God, we can go on and on and on.
I know, but podcast listeners are like, I can't keep running, or I can't keep walking, or something. Okay, so cloth grocery bags are better in terms of carbon footprint than plastic, obviously. But what's the least of two evils, paper bags or reusable plastic grocery bags? Because I've read some studies on this recently.
The paper bags or the reusable plastic bags?
Yeah. So like, you know, you have like your big plastic grocery bag, the reusable one you take to the store.
Okay.
Or you're thinking, okay, plastic is worse than paper, I should just use paper bags. Do you know?
I don't use either.
Mm-hmm. You use the cloth bags.
So I have a bunch of reusable cloth bags that I use. I don't have any plastic anymore. The other thing that I have that I go to the grocery store are just big bins. So I just have these like bins. I bring about three to the grocery store with me, and I literally just throw everything in the grocery cart, and then I have all my little cloth bags, and some of them are mesh, which might actually be some sort of plasticky kind of thing. Now that I think about it, I should probably do some digging on that. And then as we're going through the checkout, once we go through the checkout, I take the produce and I put it in the cloth bags and put it in the bins. So when I get home, oh my God, this might be a longer answer. When I get home, the cloth bags, like anything that, some of my vegetables, I like to wrap in something that's damp. So I will, like carrots, for example, I will run that cloth bag under the water, so it's already damp, and then put it in a bin and put it in my freezer, and then wash the bags and stuff like that. But when it comes to, I've done some digging too, and I hear that the paper bags are sometimes not that great either, right?
Yeah, like that's what the study had said, that the reusable plastic grocery bags were lower carbon footprint than the paper bags. The cloth bags were still better, but it had to do with how many times they were used, because you're going to use the reusable plastic grocery bags theoretically more times than the paper bags, because they would fall apart more easily. So it depends on...
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's for sure. I mean, for me, I just kind of avoid both.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's why I said,
Yeah,
what's the
yeah.
least of two evils?
What's
Because
the
so many
yeah?
people
Least of
have
two evils.
their reusable plastic
Yeah.
bags. Like, don't just throw it out if if you
But
don't think it's okay. But
the paper is not going to last you for very long. Like you're
that
going
was
to
the
get one
thing.
use of
Yeah.
that paper.
Well, and so I
So
think the debate is that a lot of grocery stores are being told they can't have plastic anymore, and they'll either go with a reusable
with
plastic
the
grocery bag or a
I
paper
know.
bag, and it's like, ugh, there are
Yeah,
better
because I know
options.
that like the LCBO, you only get the paper
The
bags, and
paper,
then you come
yeah.
home and you take your wine out and you put the paper bag in your recycling
Yeah,
bin.
which is ridiculous to me
So
also because it's like you're carrying the heaviest thing and you're putting it in the paper bag. It's like they really don't
I
want you to
know,
buy a lot of
I
alcohol,
know.
I guess.
And that's one of the things that when it comes to reducing food waste, some like yes, we all know plastic's bad, but sometimes plastic is necessary. Like I can't remember the last time I went and bought a cucumber that wasn't entirely wrapped in plastic
And it preserves it
because
longer.
it preserves it for way longer in the
Hmm.
fridge. Now, does that frustrate the hell out of me every time I try to rip off the paper that's like the plastic?
Yes.
It's so tight on the cucumber. um, and then the other thing too, it's like, with pastry dough too, like I haven't been able to find an alternate to wrapping pastry dough besides reusing the same plastic bag that I have
Right.
because pastry dough is going to dry out in the fridge. And so it's like plastic, like, yes, it's bad, but I mean, we can reuse the plastic longer.
Yeah.
So I think it's the single use plastics that are what we need to, number one, try to avoid.
Yeah. Especially for now until there's a better product. And like
Yes.
I love beeswax to replace plastic wrap
Yes.
for a lot of things, but it wouldn't work the same for your pastry dough, for example. Like
No,
it's not going to be air
no,
sealed the same
for
way.
sure.
Um, I love that product though. So my last question that was supposed to be part of the lightning round was: besides beeswax, which we now know as a replacement
Yes.
for plastic wrap, besides beeswax, besides Michael Pollan, and besides Greta Thunberg, what or who inspires your zero waste kitchen the most?
Oh my gosh. You know what? I Massimo Bottura.
Yeah,
Do you know him?
Osteria Francescana in Italy. Yeah.
And the reason why is because, well, I mean, there's a number of reasons why. But uh, 3 years ago, he was on his book tour for Bread is Gold, and I went to George Brown and I listened to him do a talk. And after that talk, the next day, I came home and wrote the pitch for this cookbook
Mm.
because everyone was asking questions about what they could do. Who do we give money to? How do we donate? What do we do? And I was like, shit, like, sorry.
No, it's fine. We can swear on this
I'm
podcast.
like,
We are
what?
explicit.
I don't know, like, what can I do? And I was like, the only thing I personally can do is start really small. And that's just starting with what I do at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he has a whole series
And
of those chef pop-ups, those soup kitchens where chefs run these
yeah,
kitchens with leftover
yeah.
food. It's amazing, but yeah, small scale. Let's start small
So
scale.
I was like, like I would love to change the world, but I barely have control over my life. So I'm just gonna have control over what I cook.
Mm.
It's the only thing I have complete control over is what I buy at the store, what I bring home, and what I cook for dinner.
Yeah.
And if I can somehow help other people and reduce food waste in the same time, then that's wonderful. That's it.
Well, I think you will with this book. I really hope people love
Oh,
it.
thank
I'm
you.
really looking forward
Okay,
to
good.
seeing it and sharing the word about it. So next year, there's
Perfect.
no date yet decided. There's no title yet.
It's going to be fall of next year for sure. And we do have a tentative title, but it hasn't been confirmed yet. But I do recommend checking out lovefoodhatewaste.ca. Check me out on thezerowastekitchen.ca, and my Instagram handles, the Zero Waste Kitchen, and me. And yeah, I really, really just look forward to being able to do more work in this and helping people, diminish their food waste one recipe at a time.
Yeah, I hope you inspire as many people that has been inspired by Massimo Bottura, because
oh my gosh,
yeah,
that's anyway. He's doing such good work.
Well, it's a trickle down, so thank you.
All right, well, thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed it, and let's talk soon.
Thanks for listening to the Second Step Podcast. If you want to catch up on past episodes or never miss a new one, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, or Pocket Casts. Follow us on Spotify and find us on Stitcher. You can stream any episode on my blog, multiculturosity.com, which you can also like on Facebook for tons of recipes and stories about zero waste. Follow me on Instagram at Miss Watson, that's Miss Watson with 2 T's, and for links to everywhere that Christine and I mentioned, check out the show notes wherever you got this podcast. Until next week, sip something delicious wherever you are.